Today, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about how I retouch images in Photoshop, because it comes up often enough that one of my MMs will send a picture saying from like the doctor, it's either like a practice picture or a bio picture, and it's not like always the best. It needs to, the color's off, or it needs to be cropped, or it's too dull. This was when I got that they wanted to actually put on the homepage, and the quality was terrible. I blurred their faces out to protect the innocent, but there was like a specific note to crop out the beer bottles. Yeah, so I, um, I actually wrote back. I said it's like the actual picture itself. It's like a cell phone picture on vacation, and like the quality is awful and it's backlit. So I actually wrote back and said maybe it would be a better idea to use one of the professional pictures. It's a husband and wife. So I'm waiting to hear back on that one. But I just wanted to take you through one picture and show you what I do. So this image, it's actually a really nice picture. Everybody's smiling and looking at the camera. It's very dull and it's very dim. It's very big. It was like about 30 megabytes in the image library. It's about 6,000 pixels, so it needs to be resized. But it's like a nice picture. We can just bring out a little bit more of the best. I have a super, super old version of Photoshop, so it might be a little bit different, but it's more or less the same, the directions that you would take on newer versions. So one way to do it, the first thing I would do with the picture is try and fix up the brightness and the contrast. So one way to do it is you go to Image and then Adjustments, and then you go to Brightness or Contrast, like on the drop-down menu. And then what will happen is a small box will pop up with controls to either make it more bright or less bright, or have more contrast. Now, the reason why I don't use this way of changing the brightness and contrast so much is that when you click OK, it applies it to the layer itself, and there's sort of like no going back. There is a way of going back, but like it applies it to the change to the layer itself. The way I usually do it is I do it through the layers panel. So I happen to love layers, find them super intuitive, although many people don't. So what adjustment layer does basically is it creates a new layer sort of like on top of the image you're editing. So you add sort of like just the brightness and it's on top, so you could toggle it off and on. So the way to do it is in the layers panel, you go to the bottom where there's the red circle, there's like a small black and white circle, and you click it. And then another sort of screen pops up where you can choose all different types of adjustment layers. So you can choose black and white or hue and saturation, or all different ones, levels, curves, color balance. The ones I use the most are brightness and contrast and photo filter, which is what we're going to see next. So I chose brightness and contrast. And then I sort of like played just a little bit to make sure that I'm not making it too bright. But when you click OK on the top, it's just like a subtle change, but it's a little bit brighter. It's not so dark and gloomy anymore. But I think it's still they're pretty washed out. So what I do next is you could do another adjustment layer on top. It's sort of covered up in the layers panel here. But if you see there, like over here, there are three layers. There's the background image, which is just plain white, and then there's this image here, which is the original picture, and then there's the adjustment layer on top. So I'm going to create, I clicked again on the bottom over there, and then up here I click photo filter. And then there are all different types of filters you can use. There's warming filters, there's cooling filters, there are like colors you can put on top, like magenta and red and blue, and you can also change the transparency, like the density of the filter. So I chose a warming filter just to make them seem a little bit more color. And then when you click OK, what you see is the bottom image. So here you can tell from like the first image to the last image, there's a big difference. And it makes, I think, like a really big difference when you're putting up like a nice practice picture and it looks great on the page. And it's like subtle, but I mean, yeah, it makes a big difference in my book, I think. So that's basically like the steps I use to retouch a picture. You can, like I said, you can use, there's a sharpen tool that sometimes if the picture isn't so sharp, you can make it a little bit sharper. You can change it to black and white. If Photoshop isn't super intuitive or you don't have it, I think everybody does, there's a great mobile app called Snapseed. And I think it's free. And it's pretty much as good as Photoshop. And you can do everything with it on your phone. It's even great for personal use. I actually, on that picture of the doctor and the two doctors, the husband and wife with the beer bottle, I was having massive problems in Photoshop, and I actually brought it to my phone and fixed it up there to try and make it like less bright. And it worked pretty well, even though we're not going to use it. Just a caveat, I would always err on the side of not changing too much rather than changing, like making it too bright, because everybody's screens are different. And just one more thing, with Photoshop in general, like just double check your image. I thought this was a funny Photoshop mistake, that it was like a picture in Vanity Fair. Oprah has 3 hands. So yeah, so just double check whenever you're using Photoshop. It's not too bright. Yeah. So
That's
yeah,
hilarious. I would never have seen that.
yeah.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They tried to
that's
make her more warm and friendly. Oh, that's really funny.
They tried to turn her into an octopus. So funny.
Yeah, she needs another arm reaching out to the Tom Hanks.
yeah. So that's
I
pretty
wonder
much.
which one is her real hand. Looks
I
like
think
the
they
one
took
that's
a bunch
around
of
her waist.
pictures. I think they took more than one picture and just put them together. That's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Hilarious.
Yeah.
yeah. So those are the steps more or less that I use to go through pictures, and yeah, that's everything. So it does make a big difference, I think, in the end. Yeah, and that's it. That's all. Anybody have any questions?
Was this recorded? I just came back.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
was recorded? Okay, fine.
Yes. And I'm stopping the recording now.